On a warm summer night, a man named Steven sits alone in his apartment watching television. Suddenly on his phone, he gets a text message from his sister Mary inviting him to come join her and a friend named Diane for a night at a popular club. Steven agrees to meet the two because he has strong love feelings for Diane. They meet at the club and head inside for drinks. Steven and Diane dance for a couple hours while Mary dances with a handsome, shady man. Diane informs Steven that this nightclub that they are at supposedly is cursed by a demon who comes every 20 years to steal an innocent soul and bring them down to hell. The night gets late and Diane and Steven want to leave, so they try to find Mary on the dance floor. The lights are very flashy and bright in the club, so it's hard to distinguish anyone. Just when they think she's gone or left the club, they see her in the distance with this shady man. Out of nowhere, the lights shut off and there is a bolt of yellow lightning, and Mary and the strange man disappear out of thin air. Nobody besides Mary and Steven seen what happened. Everyone is too far gone on drugs to see what actually happened at the club. Frantically, Diane and Steven search the club one more time to see if what they saw actually happened. They looked everywhere, tried to call Mary's phone, but there is no sign of her, and the club employees are kicking everyone out because it's closing for the night. Diane remembers the story she told Steven about the demon, so she checks Mary's phone's location from her iPhone, and what they find, they couldn't comprehend. Mary's phone location showed her to still be at the club, but the icon was moving. Steven and Diane rushed over to Steven's uncles, who instructed them to see a priest who has dealt with similar scenarios before. The priest instructs Steven to retrieve specific water from a holy well in the mountains from a specific ritual to save his sister. Steven and Diane retrieve the holy water. They return to the priest to start the ritual. Before the ritual starts, the priest informs Steven that once in hell, the only way to return back to Earth is for him and his sister to cross the lake of fire together. Steven doesn't want to accept this responsibility, but he is then informed he's the only mortal whose soul will be accepted by the ritual. Steven lays down in the coffin, drinks the holy water, then the priest lights the coffin on fire, and Steven is sent down into the gates of hell.
Steven gazes into the faraway distance to only have the kingdom of El Diablo catch his eye, then come to realize it's straight across the lake of fire. He helps himself back on his feet to look around and think about how he could possibly help himself get to the other side. Conveniently, as he continues to wonder and see what he can find, he stumbles across a vacant boat that he will eventually use. As he sets for sail on the fire lake, he happens to encounter just one of the many beasts that lurks through the deep waters. Peeking out through the waters was a monster's head and beaming pitch-black eyes. Then following along arose his gigantic fins, making unbearable waves every time they would hit the water. Without even having to look closely, you could see the monster's wet, scaly skin covering every inch of the creature's body. Steven tries everything he can to avoid being taken down with the Fire Lake sea monster, but it holds too much power over him. In the act of the boat being destroyed, he struggles to try and stay afloat with whatever piece that was in his reach. Before Steven's able to make it ashore on his own, the monster grabs him and throws him past the lake of fire, smacking him down onto the land beside it. As he is trying to regain stability, he feels a sudden pull on his backside. He flips over to the other side to see a soul collector standing right above him. Before Steven's able to get a word out, the collector takes him to the dungeons for due processing. After arriving, Steven is put onto a line where he waits his turn, thinking to himself, "Is there really a fucking line?" After hours and hours have passed him by, they finally lead Steven to his room. Passing through a dark but dim-lighted hallway just enough to see the other people who were captured and tied down, he arrives into his rooms with an unwelcomely push that leaves him laying on his hard ground. As he continues to lay there with no intentions of getting up, the thoughts start to weigh on him heavy. He begins to feel hopeless, as if he has no purpose. The feeling of being stuck and overwhelmed soon starts to take over, as he feels as if the walls are closing in on him. Then suddenly he starts to hear whispers of trying to get his attention. But he thinks he's going crazy and shakes it off as nothing. He continues to hear it and finally decides to take a look around when he sees a man that catches his attention. "I know what you're looking for," he said. He continues by telling Steven the location as where he could find Mary and how to get her back. Both working together to devise a plan for Mary's escape, they then come to realize what it can take. "You have to disguise yourself as a soul collector," Harold exclaimed. With a confused look, Stephen wonders how that could come about. Helping Stephen to understand a bit better, the Herald says, in order to do so, you have to kill a soul collector and put on their armor as your own. Optimistic about the plan, Stephen makes his first move. He gets one of the soul collectors to assist him on the side where no one else can see, and Harold follows along. As they start to take shots at the soul collector, it gets harder and harder for them to both stay on him. But Harold ultimately sacrifices his own life for Stephen to defeat the collector himself. Before his escape, disguised as a soul collector, he quickly pays his respects and thanks to Harold for all his help and then begins his journey to find his sister.
After many trials and tribulation, Stephen finally arrives to a dark, massive tower, the location where his sister's soul is being kept. The place seems to be unguarded, an eerie silence in the air. This is very strange to Stephen. Why would the tower, where the soul of his sister is being kept, be left so carelessly unattended? Conquering some flights of stairs, he reaches a grand door so beautifully carved of foul depictions of suffering and death. A short stand with a glass case just tall enough to reach him comfortably sits there next to the door. He feels he needs some protection before he proceeds. This feeling makes something appear in the glass case. It's a gun, a .357 Magnum to be in fact. Without any hesitation, he grabs the gun because he is not stupid enough to go behind those doors without it. Stephen opens the door slowly, preparing himself for whatever he may face after entering this room. Heaviness instantly sets on his shoulders as he enters the room. The grandeur of the room is just as captivating as he expected it to be, but it is dim so he cannot see too much. A stray beam of light focuses on what appears to be a shrine of some sort, reminding him of his goal. He walks up to a podium carrying a big glass jar filled with some kind of liquid. Looking at the jar, he notices what looks like to be Mary's soul trapped inside the jar. She notices him as well and bangs on the glass, crying for help. He quickly reacts by opening the lid and tries to reach inside the jar. He flinches back in pain because he finds out the liquid burns to the touch. All of a sudden, he feels as if he is not alone anymore, like if he's being watched. He looks up and sees a pair of fierce glowing eyes. Before the creature staring down at him could come out of the dark, Stephen immediately pulls out his gun. The creature strikes and Stephen opens fire, blasting 3 shots. His quick thinking buys him some time as the creature falls hard to the ground before the podium. Stephen's eyes widen as he realizes the creature he shot is a giant serpent. He wastes no time to go back to the glass jar, having the slight fear he did not kill the creature. Presumed correctly, the serpent jumped at Stephen, but it's too late as Stephen puts his hand in the jar, ignoring the searing pain, and pulls out his sister while flinging the jar towards the serpent behind him. The jar breaks and the serpent starts to shriek in pain as the liquid is burning it. Stephen makes the drastic decision of shooting the remaining liquid around the snake, igniting it into flames. Now the snake and the rest of the tower is quickly burning up. With no time to waste, there is nowhere else to go but to the top of the tower. Stephen and his sister reach the top and have no means of escaping. He grabs his sister and takes a leap of faith. Thankfully, his faith was true and he was granted angel wings. He flies to safety and the only thing left to do is go home. But there is this feeling that there is something left to do. To ensure his safety, he needs to kill the Diablo.
After Stephen calls upon Diablo for the final time, him and Mary hear a great rumble crescendo in the distance. "This is it, Mary. That's gotta be him," Stephen exclaimed. He touches down quickly on a small island in the middle of the lake of fire. "Now, Mary, whatever happens, stay hidden here. I'll be back for you," Stephen tells Mary. "No, wait, don't go," cried Mary. "I told you, I don't have a choice. I have to do what the trapped soul Jack said, Mary," Stephen pleads. "You've got to trust me. I'll be back for you, sis. I promise." Their hands slip apart as Stephen majestically lifts off into the skies above the lake of fire. Soul collectors are swarmed together by the thousands along the beaches of the lake. The heat is smoldering. Sweat drips down into Stephen's brow as he sees something coming toward him, moving faster than a locomotive. Out from the disorienting heat waves, Diablo rams into Stephen, driving him down toward the lake in an attempt to plunge him into the fires below. Diablo's grip burned Stephen. His skin felt like a red-hot iron. "How did you get down into my realm? No angel has entered this realm in eons," hissed Diablo, while plummeting entangled with Stephen. Stephen reaches down into his pocket to pull out the remaining holy water in the glass flask. He never drank all of it in hopes that if trapped for a long period of time, he could keep his soul pure. Diablo laughing maniacally as they are only meters from the lake's surface. He says, "Your soul will be mine." Stephen now surprises Diablo and says, "We'll see about that." He splashes the holy water on the ferocious demon's blood-red eyes. Diablo screams as his eyes freeze. He relinquished his boiling grip on Stephen. Stephen shoots up skyward, catching a thermal. He hears a whooshing sound approaching from behind. Stephen turns around to find a giant inferno whirling ferociously behind him. "Don't worry, boy. Don't need my eyes to see you here. You are in my world, and in my world, you will burn forever." Diablo, followed by his inferno, lunges towards Stephen. Stephen quickly reacts and barrel rolls left in midair, swiftly. Only one of Diablo's talons scathe him across his chest. "I can't keep this up for much longer," Stephen murmurs to himself. In the distance, he sees a giant wake below in the lake. Stephen dive bombs straight for it. Diablo and his inferno, both roaring in fits of rage, pursue Stephen. Second by second, inch by inch, no matter how fast Stephen flies, Diablo keeps gaining. Stephen hovers over the island where Mary lay low. He locks eyes with his sister. Mary is crying. Stephen tears up, and he mouths to her, "I'm sorry, sis." With Stephen inches from Diablo's clutches, Mary says one last prayer. "I've got you!" yells Diablo, but he's cut off. Out of the lake of fire leaps none other than the spectacular and almighty lake monster that destroyed Stephen's boat. Its jaws, so massive it swallowed Diablo and the Inferno whole. From the shock of the sheer size of the lake beast's jaws closing, Stephen is hurled down and crashes onto the island Mary is occupying. "Stephen!" Mary cries. She runs towards Stephen asking, "Are you okay?" Stephen stands up and spreads his wings. A light shines across the lake. Stephen grabs Mary and they take off toward the gleaming light. They approach an exit door similar to that of the nightclub. "After you, sis." They walk through the threshold, and suddenly, they're in the nightclub again. "They did it!" exclaimed the priest. Diane runs up and clings on to Stephen. Their uncle asks, "What happened to your back, Stephen?" They see the scars from when Stephen's wings were. The priest explains, "He is Mary's guardian angel," and winks at Stephen.